There for Brian Hartley and the V's, but we're going to show you something completely different. What you're looking at are the RT2000s, and now we switch to the sports cars. So there we've two grids out here in the one race. These beautiful little two-seater sports cars built in the north of Ireland, the Crossley 9S sports cars, and they will line up on the front of the grid, all 11 of them. There will be a 20-second gap, and then we have the RT2000. Both these cars have the same engine, 2000 Ford engines in them, all rear-wheel drive. Very excited. Beside me is Richard Young, who's driven the Crosleys on numerous occasions.
The position that PJ Fallon's driving is the one that I had a little go in. They're a 1966 design, but they're making them again, and people are buying them. They're a great racing class.
We're going to wait for this grid. As we said, a 20-second gap, but it's absolutely superb. One make racing, both ones, saloons and sports cars. Something that we thrill here. The crowds at Mondello Park have stayed on to watch these. These are the most exciting saloons. Plenty of paint being swapped. We're waiting for the 5-second board. The cars are beginning to rev their engine. The lights change and away they go. And it's PJ Fallon on pole position, who I think has the jump. Arnie Black, the constructor of these cars, just beginning to dive down the outside, but late on the brakes, and PJ drops into second place. And again, young Smith there, Kieran Smith in the brown one, just trying to look at the inside, and himself and Richard Parsons would fall over each other. But a superb start from Arnie.
And away go the RT2000s, and first one away there, it's Morgan Dempsey Jr. who's just joined this championship a couple of races ago. He's not on the points table. Jonathan Taylor's already won the championship, but Morgan's proving to be the pace of the field.
The man in the background there just giving a nudge there, the red car. Jonathan Taylor is the man that's won it, but young Dempsey Jr., a previous Opel contestant, the winner there, but he is a superb guy and superb motor racing. And down they go into that double apex down there, Ambassador. There he is, Jonathan Taylor, looking at the back of one of the Donegan cars. They're all fairly even. They're coming out over the hill, and this is playing into the hands of Morgan Dempsey Jr., a superb young driver, coming down into third, into second gear for this long left-hander. The two Donegans there, David and Brendan, battling away, and they're trying to keep Jonathan Taylor and John Morrison, the second of these red cars, in the background. A double winner at the Phoenix Park. The blue car there is John Whelan. John Morris there, just poking it in there, out onto the quickest part of the circuit, and just look how quick these lads are going as they head down to Tarzan.
And it looked very much as though Jonathan Taylor was making a move on one of the Donegans. Indeed he has. He's got himself into third place, but Morgan Dempsey Jr. definitely leading. Arnie Black, the front Crossley, PJ Fallon, the pole sitter, in second place, and then it's Richard Parsons in third, before a big gap to the rest of them.
These are beautiful little sports cars, and these three up front have had a win apiece. You can see that there's pulled that gap. We're back with the RTs. That's Donegan lad. Just tail out there, Gordon Kellett. And again, Jonathan Taylor not making up that much ground as they fly through. Arnie Black in the blue one holds off the yellow one of PJ Fallon. PJ would like to put one over on him here. Old friends from the midget days. I've raced against both these gentlemen, had the pleasure of beating both of them, but today they're out on a do or die effort. This is a big one for them. The cars, as he said, are built many years ago. These are new antiques, as they would say, brand new, out of the shell. We're back here. That's the man that's leading the RTs, Morgan Dempsey Jr.
Morgan Dempsey Jr., who of course raced Formula Opel and all sorts of things before switching to saloons just a couple of races ago, and he's well, I was going to say he's pulling away, but it does rather look as though David Donegan has got him in check now and is keeping him in sight, and he's got his mirrors full of Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, David Donegan there in the white and yellow car. Jonathan Taylor there, who leaves us and goes off to race professionally in the UK next year in the Clio Series. We wish him well. Already the champion. Back with the Crosleys. Black coming through there, the quickest part of the circuit, down onto his braking area. You'll see them turn in beautiful little motor cars. Lets it out to the rumble strip, turns back up the hill, over the inside, and hit the curb a little hard there.
Yes, that was shaking his feelings a little bit.
PJ just pulled a half car length, and that's all you need in these cars. They're so even, just to hit a curb, and there he's moving in. These two begin to pull slightly from Parsons.
Yes, and they were separated by just about 1,000th of a second during practice. Back with the RTs, Morgan Dempsey Jr. Bit of empty track behind him now. He's taking advantage of the fact the other two behind him are looking at each other, and he's making a bit of a break for it.
And Donegan, fair dues to him, just started racing this time up from the V class, and he is a superb man. And Taylor, I'm surprised that he's letting them get away into the start of the S. It just flicks it in, it gear change. Down the straight they come. It's still Arnie Black, PJ Fallon in the yellow one. Touch of the John Watsons about that helmet, for those of you who remember John when he was racing in Formula 1. all of these cars, 2-seaters, 2-litre, getting the tail out there. Arnie, PJ getting the advantage just as they come through this very sharp left-hander. Making the way down here. It's just a pop, a dab on the brakes and flat through the first part of Ambassador, then down the gearbox into second, turn it up the hill, put the power on very late on the brakes there, PJ.
And a little bit of a historical note. No, we're back with the RTs. We'll come back to history in a moment. That's Morgan Dempsey still in front, looking very untroubled now as they go down to Toyota, and Donegan second and Taylor in third place.
And these three just dropping Johnny Whelan in fourth place. Jonathan Taylor should be the man, but the Crosleys have bunched up. Barney Black beginning to get the pressure from PJ Fallon. Richard Parsons in third place there, hasn't given up either. He's been a winner at Kirsten. PJ would love to win here. A race in the Phoenix Park was absolutely superb. They swapped the lead 4 or 5 times. Black through that very quick part of the circuit, down the gearbox, all the way into second gear, holds second gear, out to the rumble strip. This is where he hit the curb the last time, misses it this time. PJ beautifully slides the car out behind him, and Richard Parsons sitting in the back end waiting for something to happen.
You mentioned John Watson. He actually won a Leinster meeting at Dunboyne driving a Crossley sports car.
That's how historic these cars are, and that's young Kieran Smith in the lonely place. It's not actually, I take it away, it's Hugh Webb who's a surgeon. All these people are gentleman racers. One of them is a stockbroker, one of them is surgeon, one of them a professional man in the motor business, but they enjoy their motor racing, and you can see that the RTs are beginning to catch some of the back markers, and that's Dempsey Jr. up out of cars of one. Donegan goes through, then Jonathan Taylor hard on the brakes through the S's, through the first part, just misses the curb, lets it run wide, back into second gear again, onto this short straight where they come up at the back of the paddock. And there's Taylor out onto the rumble strip. You can see this short dash and a bit of a tail out there for Donegan, and Jonathan Taylor the same.
And Morgan Dempsey Jr. going to catch the rear guard of the Crossley Brigade quite soon. That's going to be an interesting problem for him, because where the Crossleys are fast, in some parts of the circuit the RTs are quicker in others. Arnie Black still leading that Crossley procession, but procession it isn't really, because if PJ can see any kind of a gap, he's going to go for it. Arnie getting a little twitched up there, braking for the S's, he leaves a gap. PJ thought about that for a moment, but he's decided to bide his time.
As you can see, there's nothing between the lap times, 0.02 of a second. PJ sitting in the slipstream, can't just do anything. He'll get a little stagger under braking there, a dab on the brakes, and then out through the parabolica. This long back straight, the quickest part of the new international circuit here at Mondello Park. Just a slight long left-hander. PJ really coming in heavy on the brakes. Arnie just controlling this race at the moment, just clips the curve again, sets it up, and you see immediately PJ can pull that car length.
And Richard Parsons is sitting there hoping that one or other of the two in front of him are going to make some kind of a mistake, and that will allow him to take another win. He had 2 at Kyrgyzstan a week ago. He's very keen to have a third, with Arnie Black sliding the car there out of the left-hander. The car's on road tyres, interestingly, which means they slide around a lot more than if they were on slicks.
They begin to get very warm indeed. You saw PJ Fallon there in the yellow one, just getting the tail out, but corrects it. It's so precise, these ones. And there's the gap. We're going back to what we saw of the rest of the Crossley battle. There's 3 or 4 of them battling there. Meanwhile, young Dempsey is still leading the RTs, but Black from Fallon as they come down the straight at the moment, over the start-finish line, moves out to the left-hand side. In fact, no, he thinks PJ is a little close. I'm not going to leave that door open. And PJ is close. He's alongside his back wheel. But remember, the next one is a left-hander. He's in the wrong position, but he is closing in on him.
He's closing in, and he's reminding Arnie that PJ Fallon is the man who knows his way around Mondello Park, and given half a chance, he's going to be passed.
Down Ambassador again, he takes it a wide line into second gear and up the hill. He's got the momentum. They're coming down to the S's. This big long left-hander, a wide line from PJ, later on the brakes, just stepping out slightly, a couple of feet between them. And all the time in third place, Richard Parson holding a watching brief. Out they head towards the parabolic. A little dab on the brakes here in the turn in. A very quick, long right hand. And very quick indeed there. PJ really got it set up and got the tail to slide out there. Lost a little bit of time as they go down the quickest part of the circuit once again.
Meanwhile, further back, the first of the RTs has now passed the last of the Crossleys, and that's eaten up that 20-second deficit they started with. But that's not worrying the 3 leading Crossleys, because they are the fastest cars on the circuit at the moment. In fact, PJ has the fastest lap, 150.92 seconds, but it hasn't been enough to get him past Arnie Black just yet.
You missed up and down a quarter second between the Parsons cutting across the inside of the curb there, trying to make up a little ground. 3 fairly evenly matched. Again, they are on that road tires, as Richard says, so they're getting hot and getting sticky, but they begin to slide them. This is the leader of the RTs. Leader, second place man, David Donegan. These two pulling well away from the man we thought would set the world on fire here, Jonathan Taylor. So there he is, David Donegan, a winner at the Phoenix Park. Superb run there, and he was on the second row, remember, so he's made a good run of it.
Back to the Crossleys again, and Arnie Black left a gap there, and PJ Fallon very nearly got the nose of the yellow car into it, just wasn't quite close enough. Parsons dropped back, I think possibly to avoid any flying fiberglass that might result.
And if they do touch, there will be fiberglass. These beautiful little cars, all five. Space frame, independent wishbone suspension, front and back, as I said, a 2-litre Ford engine. About 210, maybe 220 brake horsepower, but Fallon's using every bit of that brake horsepower as he comes down into the S's. Nice lace braking, and Parsons beginning to waken up now. He thinks, listen, you guys have been playing at it long enough, I'm going to have a run at it. And all three, I don't know who has the tow rope, but Black at the moment coming down into the parabolic at that long turn in. Fallon was quick here, we got the tail out the last time. Parsons is quick through, and now we're back in with the middle of the dice, and this is John Keeney. John Keeney, who's fighting for second place in the championship, locking up the wheels there. John Morris, a winner from the Phoenix Park, and John had the door nicely closed, and they are well battling away. So it was John Keeney from John Morris.
Yes, and then Gordon Kellett and George Crozier next in line, and Robert Taylor in the yellow car is just out of shot there, also on the back of that train. So grand action going on in the midfield RT section.
We've got to tell you this, that John Keeney won the first ever race here at Mondello Park. He hates us to say that, but John, you're still driving as well as ever, and John Morris at the moment would love to put you down a place, turning into this long left-hander. Gordon Kellett, another saloon car champion from years ago, but these guys absolutely, now we know why the gap is from the first three, because they're falling over each other.
Yes, and John Morris is looking very impatient behind John Keeney. It's hard to know whether John Keeney can keep them behind for very much longer. Interestingly, he won the first race. He's wearing the same race number today as he was on that occasion, number 43.
It was his lucky number, like keeping that inside line just in the middle of the road, keep him well in there. Don't open the door here, down at Tarzan 1, Tarzan 2, popping over Crozier there, and then we up the hill, and you can see what a train of them they are, all fairly even, but it's hard. Number 45A. That's
Brian Sarafilovich's car, and that's Brian indeed looking a bit cheesed off, as well he might, having parked the car in the gravel trap. But back up at the front of the Crossley battle, it's still Arnie Black, it's still PJ Fallon, and it's still Richard Parsons, and they're all still trying their hearts out.
It's not much difference in where we left them. They're still at it, all the three of them still giving it a run down through the parabolic. Again, Parsons not as quick as the other two. Black seemed to gain a little advantage there out on the long straight. You see them coming through this fast left-hand sweep, and now really hard on the brakes, and PJ very late on the brakes, turns in nice and early, gets a bite at it, and he should be able to pull back that couple of car lengths that Arnie got at the parabolic. So PJ Fallon still there in second place in the yellow car. Arnie Black in the lead, a little dab on the brakes to flick in over the curb, another dab on the brakes, flick in over that curb, let it run all the way out, then ease on the throttle, you don't brake, and then turn it in for this long left-hander at Honda up the short back straight, and that flag in the background is for Salovic's car. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sarafilovic, he's Scottish, you would tell, can't you? But the three leaders now, the tyres must be getting very warm. The car's beginning to snake around a lot more in mid-corner.
And this is the leader of the saloons, Morgan Dempsey Jr. Don't forget this 8-lap race, 6 laps gone, and they're beginning to catch up. There's no way they're going to catch the leaders.
And the three Crossleys now on their last lap. It's still Arnie Black, and PJ Fallon hasn't lost interest yet. He hasn't given up. He can still see the prospect of getting to the checkered flag first if Arnie just puts one wheel wrong.
And one wheel you got to do, and one wheel on the grass and one of these, and you'd just be a passenger turning in, biting it in that time. as you just down, he's very, very late on the brakes down there at Ambassador. The second gear exit corner, this is the one where he really gets on the tail. He's having a look down the outside, hoping to unsettle Mr. Black, but no. It'll take a little more than that PJ to unsettle this man through that long, long lefter, up a gear, heading towards Parabolica. And this is a place now where we saw PJ have a dive at the inside, but Arnie again just pulled that magic car length, and that's all you need to get a little bit of comfort in this class.
Yes, and PJ's sliding around now. Those back tires, I think, getting a little bit warm and a little bit fed up with being abused like this, and not providing the grip. Arnie Black now pulled out a couple of car lengths as they go down to the 2000s, and Parsons now showing a great deal of interest in PJ.
Yes, Richard decided maybe that second place isn't out of the way, but out of Parabolica, Barney just lit it up, got it right, in through the S's, around the back here, this long left-hander at Honda, the short straight into the back of the paddock, up the hill, and it's yet another win for the man who took over the Crossley car company and reinvented these cars, as I call them, the new antique class, through this very quick left-hander at the back of the paddock, up the hill to Motorfit for the last time, on the brakes into second gear. There will be no change, bar Calamity. Parsons very close indeed. Arnie exits in a little bit of a slide. PJ is second and Parsons is third. And now we're going to see what these RT guys have been at. They're still out there battling away, but Black wins yet another one.
And Morgan Dempsey's up to 7th place overall, which means he's ahead of a couple of the Crossleys. There he is, heading through the long right-hander, the second half of it, and he's got less than half a lap to go now before he sees the checkered flag. David Donegan a good distance behind him, and Jonathan Taylor is where? He's not even in shot yet.
No, Jonathan Taylor dropping well back, but fair dues to this young man. This is his third race in these cars, and he's really switched it up. He's put it up to them. Donegan there coming up over the hill as well. So there he is, young Morgan Dempsey Jr. Just turns it in nicely, lets it out at Motorfit, and he's the winner of the RS 2000s. In the background is Donegan, and the third place man will be Jonathan Taylor.
And Jonathan Taylor through, and so to a commercial break.